All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of the Live Loud Life podcast. My name is Antonio, your host of the Live Loud Life podcast. And today we have Sarah Jane Sandy joining us. She is we'll just kind of encompass it as a fertility expert. But we're gonna chat and get to know a little bit more about her and her knowledge in this field. This is not something that we work entirely with. I would say my wife, Dr. Michelle, does more. She has a lot of knowledge and expertise in that, but yet there's kind of this element of when you go above and beyond kind of basic knowledge, we need an expert to help us, especially when so many people are wanting to get pregnant and expand their family. So welcome.
Really, thank you. It's so nice to be here.
Well, let's just start off. I mean, I read your bio, so I know. But for the listeners, can you give a little bit of your background and how you started in your own journey, and then kind of what led you to where you are now?
Yeah, definitely. Yes, so I live in Boulder, Colorado. I have a private nutrition consulting practice with a strong emphasis on, as you just said, working with couples trying to get pregnant, as well as I work really heavily with women trying to sort out their hormone imbalances, whether trying to conceive or not. Many, many women of our modern day have hormones that are a total mess. So I work with a lot of women in that regard. I sort of came to this field during my own hormonal imbalance journey, as most of us healing practitioners do. We come to our places of work through our own health journeys. Um, Way back in the day, I was in graduate school. Well, I had a public relations degree. I went and worked in the corporate world in a big public relations firm in Chicago for a few years and realized that was so not my role and not fulfilling. And I was really fascinated by food and nutrition and the world of holistic medicine and functional medicine. And so I went back to graduate school to study nutrition therapy. I got my graduate degree. And when I was writing my sort of like big independent study paper upon graduation, I decided to choose the subject of how to increase fertility naturally. I was young in my early 20s, not trying to conceive at the time, but was having a lot of hormonal issues in my own body and realized had I been trying to conceive, I would definitely have been struggling. And I just saw in our world that like there is a real situation in terms of infertility. Like, especially I feel like, I feel like right now, the last like few months with this whole like male infertility thing that's like in all of the, big media outlets, it's a big deal. And so again, this was, 15 years ago, but I really dove into the research and the studies and tried to understand what is it that affects our reproductive systems and what can we do through food, through lifestyle modifications, through nutrients, through mind body healing modalities, etc. And that really like took me on my journey to starting my own business with a real emphasis on fertility. I worked in Chicago at a big integrative care center for fertility, working alongside reproductive endocrinologists and reproductive immunologists. So it was really truly like more of the allopathic conventional realm of fertility treatments, joined with more of the holistic model, functional model of healing through food and massage and acupuncture and chiropractic care and sort of all of these different modalities. And it's been an amazing journey. Like I said, I work primarily one-on-one with women and couples. I also developed an online fertility course along the way, primarily just as a way to reach way more people. There's a lot of people out there that maybe don't have the time or the financial resources to work with me every single week for 12 weeks, and so I created a online 12-week course that really walks women and couples through what I consider sort of like the most foundational pieces to get pregnant easily, stay pregnant, have a whole full term, healthy pregnancy, and then really ease that transition into parenthood. So here I am.
And with that, plug your social handles and your website, because I always am so bad about making sure I ask.
Totally.
So we could segue. I have these things. This is boom, hit it.
Yes. So my website is my full name, sarahjanesandy.com. That's SARAH. JANESANDY. My fertility code program, it's thefertilitycode.com. And then on Instagram, I post a ton on Instagram. My handle is also my full name, Sarah Jane Sandy. And you can also find me on Facebook. Also, facebook.com/Sarah Jane Sandy.
Perfect. So let's dive in.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, obviously you had mentioned some as with most media, this is the big
Hmm.
thing now. This is the big thing now. Um,
Totally.
and we see fertility issues, and I'm biasly saying this, but I feel like from what we hear from a dialogue perspective, a lot of people assume it's a female issue,
Hmm.
right? So
Totally.
we'll get into obviously some of those aspects, but what's the new news about male fertility and some of the things that have been popping up lately?
Yeah, one, just like straight out of the gate, the research is very clear that basically a third of fertility issues are based on something going on in the woman's body. A third of fertility issues are based on something going on in the male body. And a third of the fertility issues are like, we're not really sure in terms of sort of this like unexplained realm. So it's very equal in terms of women and men. And yes, in my 15 years of working with clients, 90% are women. Very occasionally will a partner or a spouse join the conversation and sort of like, I offer couple consultations. It's hardly ever utilized. And it's unfortunate in my opinion that we've sort of like really placed a lot of the burden of fertility issues on the woman, where really that's totally not like the reality. And what's been known for many years is that sperm counts are massively on the decline. Like from the 1960s until today, it is a significant decline, like 60% decline in sperm rates, sperm counts. And that information is really coming forefront and center right now. A lot of big media outlets are picking up this story. It's not anything new by any means. This has like totally been well known, but I think that honestly, it's a good thing that there is a shifting of more of a spotlight on like, hey, this isn't just like something's wrong with the female partner in this, relationship here. There really needs to be an emphasis on the male. Every time I'm working with a woman, literally the very first initial consultation, when we're talking about sort of the treatment plan, it's always if your partner has not yet had a proper semen analysis, get that done. If your partner or male partner, spouse, whatever, has not had a full blood workup, really looking at nutrient levels, at thyroid health, at hormone levels, this needs to be done. So, and all of the dietary lifestyle supplement recommendations that I'm making for her, I'm always making for him as well, because this is totally a two to tango kind of situation here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's so funny, and this is I'm just thinking from a society perspective too, like movies and sitcoms and things like that. You always hear is like when the male accidentally gets someone pregnant, they're like, "Oh my gosh, my boys can swim!" Right? But like the shock, yet on the other end, it's just like assume that like everything would be copacetic and just
Okay.
as it is. So what? Obviously, I think obviously outside of we can get super analytical here,
Mhm.
blood analysis and hormones and all those things, which would
Yeah.
be important, but it's one of those things like without the information, this information isn't pertinent. So you got to do that, which I think would be
Yeah.
good, but then it's also an understanding of what those things mean. That's why we refer out for hormone stuff to a functional medicine provider because she can check these patterns above any like unlike anything I've ever seen. That being said, getting into more of obviously changes lifestyle, right? You had mentioned lifestyle. Sticking
Yep.
with Speaking obviously with males, but physiologically these lifestyle factors, I'm assuming, are going to
Yep.
be pretty across the board for both. What are some of the lifestyle things that you're seeing that may be attributing to the 60% decline of sperm count in males and or just things that we're seeing now?
Yep. I think first and foremost is toxicity. chemical exposure, just like not only environmental, which is huge. I mean, we are exposed to more chemicals, more toxins than like literally ever in history today in 2023. So that's huge. I mean, sperm are very, very, very delicate cells, which is why like there's so many, many, many per ejaculation. It's like nature is hoping that literally one
Yeah.
makes it to the egg to fertilize, right? Which is just nuts. Um, but they're really highly delicate cells and therefore very easily damaged. And so we live in a modern world where just walking outside your house now, we're just heavily exposed to toxicity. Now, I always say to people, it's not like doomsday. It's more of a reason to really take proactive measures for the things that we can control, i.e., the foods we choose to eat, the quality of the water that we choose to drink, the quality of the air inside of our homes that we choose to breathe, the quality of the products that we choose to clean our houses with, or clean our clothes with, put on our bodies. Like we can either increase this chemical load by eating not great food, not organic food, poor quality, conventionally raised, not paying attention to your body care products, your cosmetics, your laundry detergents. Um, or we can, make the opposite decision where we really up level the quality of your food, get an air filter, get a water filter, clean up your home care products, clean up your personal care products. That makes a big, big difference for males for sure. But of course, just as equally, for females and our fertility. So I think that that's a primary driving one, honestly. Um, and then in terms of more male and female, is just our hormone levels we're living in a way that's not super conducive to like the optimal functioning of our hormonal system. We're super stressed. We stay up late. We don't get a lot of sleep. We're like addicted to our devices. We don't get outside. We don't like exercise in clean air with the sun shining on us. We just don't really live in a way that we used to. And yet our like DNA genetics is still pretty much the same as hundreds of years ago. And yet our modern day life and the way that we live looks so drastically different. And it's not really conducive to optimal fertility and optimal reproductive system functioning, unfortunately.
I know it's so crazy. I mean, it's as you know, as a business owner, I have this
Yeah.
instant because this is obviously which you and my wife are meeting up soon and hanging out, and you guys are gonna
Yeah.
class together. Because I'm like, oh my god, we just changed this, we just changed this. Not, not that we need any more kids. We have number 4 on the way. So,
I heard that.
yeah, well, anyways, not to get into that. But this constant just pull is just like, while we want to share this information with more people, it's through a medium which we're also saying we need to reduce. And it's this constant just, you know, opposing forces, which sometimes is a necessary evil, I guess you could say, into some degree. But no, I mean, amazing stuff. So, lifestyle, hormone function, getting back into, yes, of course, like how are we supposed to leave? Leave? How are we supposed to live? How do certain parts of your body interact within the environmental factors? And what you said so beautifully is we can't control certain things, right? And that's the hard part too, is the food element, I feel, is so challenging, even for you and I who know these things, people who don't. You look at organic prices, but yet even then the criteria for organic and the criteria for certain things that are supposed to be healthy, and yet the marketing and advertising behind it is, people are much smarter people than me are getting
Yeah.
into thinking certain things are healthy. So when you're looking at dietary stuff,
Yeah.
the obvious function would be real foods, right? But when
Yeah.
you're looking at organic and different things like that, is there any sort of guidelines you give people as a recommendation for, like, this is a tease, don't fall for these traps, or that type of
Yeah.
stuff?
Totally. Such a great question. Yes, I do. This is probably the most common question that I get, especially in today's day and age where it's like everything is really expensive, way more expensive than it even was a year ago, and so people are like, okay, what truly matters? What really should I be spending my money and my time and my resources on? What really is going to like move the needle here? So first and foremost, I always say that if you eat animal foods, absolutely that is where you should first and foremost put your most time, energy, resources to source the highest quality that you can find and afford. Animals accumulate toxicity and, hold on to toxins in their tissue, just like we do as humans, much more than plants do. That's just the fact of it. Therefore, if you're eating, any sort of animal foods, but particularly the more fat rich animal foods, which are really healthy for fertility, but also animals and humans, we store toxins in our fat tissue. It's like the body's way of protecting all the vital organs from damage. It's like, oh my God, just like store toxins in the fat tissue so that we're not, letting those toxins affect the brain and the kidneys and the heart, etc. So therefore, when we're eating these high fat animal foods, that animals that have been exposed to, genetically modified food and injected with hormones and antibiotics and steroids and all this crazy stuff going on in conventional farming and conventional animal farming, you are there now consuming all of those same chemicals and toxins. So that's like first and foremost. If you're going to buy anything, or if anything that comes from an animal, honestly, is like so important. And then the dirty dozen list. A lot of people have heard of this. It's the Environmental Working Group puts out a list every year. They call it the Dirty Dozen, which is basically the 12 most heavily pesticide sprayed fruits and vegetables and grains. So if you can at least try to buy those 12 items organic, you're doing great. They also started adding what they call the clean 15, which are like the 15 least heavily sprayed fruits, veggies, grains, etc. So those you can, kind of fudge on and buy conventional, and it's not going to be that, that much of an issue, right? So I feel like those are my first one and two. And then as you said, like the foundation is eat real food. I always say, like, think about your great grandmother or your great grandfather. Would they have recognized what you were about to put in your mouth? Like, if they would not have recognized that as food, literally something that they can like grow, raise, farm, fish, trade with their neighbor down the street, it's not food legitimately. And therefore our body doesn't recognize it as food, doesn't know what to do with it, shuttles it away in our fat tissue, which is, in my opinion, a big reason why we have such an overweight situation going on in modern days, is because like the body is just like, oh my God, exposed to so much toxicity. It's like just shuttle away in the fat cells, shuttle away in fat cells, and we just don't, we don't clean up the body, we don't detox properly anymore. And so anyways, tangent, but eat real food and like keep it simple. I personally am not a big fan of like, you need to weigh this and measure that and count this. I feel like that really just takes away the intuitive nature of eating, right? Like, if we could just listen to our bodies more, with an emphasis on like eat real food, not like, oh, my body really wants like peanut M&Ms all day long. Obviously that's not helpful. But if we really, I feel like the sort of tracking, so fastidiously, and measuring and counting, it really takes away our own intuitive nature of like, what does my body really need right now? I do feel like there are times where counting and tracking is a little bit more necessary. During pregnancy, for example, protein needs massively increase. I think that is a time that it's a good idea to like keep track of what you're eating for, a few days, a couple of weeks, so that we can really get an idea of like, are you hitting your protein needs? Because that is a time where you need to be super duper on it, because you're growing your baby literally from the foods that you're consuming.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of the, I guess the toughest parts is because so many people, I get that same intuition. I think I'm getting enough. Probably not. When in doubt, just
Totally.
so I wanted to tangent onto that too. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
somebody specializes in nutrition and things like that. Your take on supplements? What's your kind of your I'm going to say like top five or anything like that. But when we're talking
Yeah.
about obviously case dependent because supplementation is giving what someone is deficient in and what they need.
Mhm. Yep.
You're going to see some patterns obviously in society, but take it away.
Yeah. So I use supplements a lot in my practice, to be honest. I feel like, again, in a perfect world, like we could get all of the nutrients that we need from food. But I mean, one, most people are just not eating a really nutrient dense, rich diet. Some people are totally. Some people are like nailing it, you know? Most people are not. That is the majority. Secondly, our soils are just not nutrient rich as they used to be. You know, we've had a lot of massive agriculture demise of our soils, and therefore we're just not getting that nutritional gain from food like we used to. And you know, when I'm working with people, they're usually coming to me because there's something going on that they want to fix, whether that's they're trying to get pregnant or they're trying to, you know, heal their PCOS, or they're trying to lose weight, or they're trying to fix their insomnia or whatever. But there's usually a problem that they're coming to me for, and hoping that I can help them with. And so therefore, in my opinion, foundationally, we use food. And then on top of that, using therapeutic, clean, like research backed supplements. I'm a super stickler for like real deal companies that are testing all ingredients, you know, third party testing, testing final products, etc. But using specific nutrients and supplements can really expedite that healing process hugely, you know? And I feel like for most people, I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine this weekend, and she said, like, okay, if you could like say for pretty much everyone, like top five sort of supplements that almost every single person would benefit from. And I was like, okay, well, you know, and so I quickly like rattled off, I would think omega 3s, vitamin D, magnesium, um, probiotic. What was the other one I said? Um, can't think of it right now. I had five, but vitamin D, omegas, magnesium, a probiotic. Um, I mean, sometimes not sometimes, often I really will use like a legit multivitamin. Honestly, I feel like instead of people like piecemealing a million different things together, a really potent, you know, super clean, robust multivitamin can really fill in the gaps of various vitamins, minerals, nutrients, that both macro and micro that people really need. So yeah, I do use supplements. But again, as you said, like food is first. Supplements are not gonna, the supplements can't fix it. You know, food's got to come first. And same with exercise. I always tell clients, like, particular something like weight loss. I always say, like, weight loss is made it happens in the kitchen first and foremost, hands down. Exercise for sure can escalate and help and expedite, but as with pretty much everything, it starts with food.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's so funny too, and I was thinking about some things this morning, just in my own journey and other things, and I'm curious to get kind of your and how you approach it and talk about it. But everybody wants it yesterday. I'm super guilty of that, right? Same thing
Mhm.
with like business growth. It's just like, oh my gosh, this or that, or you know, made some changes based on some numbers that I had on my blood test, and you know, I'm like, oh, I feel like I should be there. Like it's been 2 weeks.
Totally.
And like these things take time, right? And like when you're talking about, and I'm curious, like your approach on this, which is, and the reason why this came to mind is I had a patient recently. Now she's, I want to say like 20 months postpartum now, and they're wanting a second kiddo, right?
Mhm.
She started at like 4 months. We're going to start trying again. We really want to expand our family, right? And we're like, well, like your body might not be ready. Maybe that's why you haven't fully replenished. You're still nursing and breastfeeding, right? So all
Yeah, totally.
but when people have been dealing with things, which we haven't been there, so I can only, you know, empathize with that. How do you approach like these things take time? Like you're, and the response is the body, not necessarily,
Yeah.
you know, time chronological itself. So, what are some of
Yeah.
your, you know, conversations or encouragements to those who might be listening about
Yeah.
the time?
Yeah. I mean, well, I think in general, I get this a lot. Say we're not speaking. I'll touch on the fertility piece in a minute, but say we're not even talking about that, and we're talking about just someone trying to, as you said, like over, whatever it is, lose weight, or they've got crazy high blood pressure or high cholesterol, they want to lose weight or whatever. It's like, think about how many years it took to get you to the place that you are, right? And then we want to make changes and expect a completely different outcome in 2 weeks. It's so common. That's like our humanness. And I really do just remind people, like, it took you a long time to get to where you're at. It's not going to take you nearly that long to reverse and to get you in a much, much better place, but it's time. Like, 6 to 12 months is always, in my opinion, like a place where I'm like, it sounds crazy, but I'm like, give yourself 6 to 12 months to reevaluate. In 6 months, rerun your labs. In 12 months, like, revisit all of your goals. Like, where are you at now versus 1 year ago, and the changes and the goals and the like aspirations that you had for your health. Because, and not that it's not a good idea to like check in with yourself much more frequently than that, but to really feel significant shift and change in our life in any regard, we all know, like, it's usually a big chunk of time until we can truly see changes. And in turn, I always say this, actually, particularly with my couples coming to me for fertility support, is the life cycle of the egg and sperm, approximately 90 days, a little less for sperm, but that's like everything that you're doing, eating, exposed to, thinking, etc., affects the health of the egg and the sperm in that 90-day period. So truly, like, it's one that's so empowering, because it's like you can really make like pretty significant shifts and change in terms of the quality of your sperm and the quality of your eggs and the quality of your hormones and quality of your body and your uterine lining, etc. But at the same time, it's like you gotta give it time for the changes to actually take effect.
So I think that was a great answer. And piggybacking off of that, and maybe wrap this up as kind of like our last talking point, is you had mentioned thoughts, and as right before you had said that, I wrote down stress. Right. So how does stress, cortisol levels, however you want to describe it, right? How does that come into play, and what are your recommendations for people who are stressed? Which is, it's like, well, we know it's a stressful situation, right? You want to get pregnant, it's not happening. Think there's something wrong with you, which there might be an element of that, but yet it could be other things. How does stress and thoughts and things come into play?
Oh, I can't believe that, like, we haven't even talked about this, because this is like the biggie of the biggie. Honestly, in my opinion, this is truly like so significant, and really, I mean, there's lots of factors, I think, playing into the reason that we're sort of in this like pretty extensive like infertility epidemic. But stress, stress is such a key player in this. The adrenals, which are the little organs that sit on our back on top of our kidneys, they produce cortisol, as you just said. So cortisol is basically our survival hormone. It keeps us alive, literally. But the body also secretes cortisol in response to stress. Back in the day, that was like in response to the stress of, like, all of a sudden you're walking along and you see a bear, or there's like, a tiger coming into your camp and trying to like get food or whatever, like real stress. Right now, our stresses are our body is producing cortisol from the minute we wake up to the minute we go to bed. It's like you're working, you've got a family, you're running a business, traffic is bad, your boss is on your nerves, you've got relationship issues with your partner, you're at odds with your family. I mean, you name it. It's like we are just sort of bombarded by stressful thoughts, stressful experiences. And so many people are living in bodies where there's this chronic output of cortisol. Well, when it comes to the reproductive system, cortisol essentially, quote unquote, steals the nutrients needed for healthy fertility and healthy reproduction. It can shut down ovulation. It takes away from production of progesterone, which is the hormone that is like critically necessary to support the viability of a newly fertilized egg. and really, sustain the health and the viability of a pregnancy. I mean, progesterone just can't be overstated. And cortisol, it's like either the body is going to make cortisol or the body is going to make progesterone, one or the other, to be honest. And the body does not deem making babies or reproducing important. Honestly, it's like the reproductive system is like bottom of the barrel, bottom of the totem pole. So if there's anything else going on in the body, like, this constant chronic sort of like sub level stress, the body's like, this isn't the best time to have a baby. Like, we don't really have the resources and the energy to one, just take care of ourselves, much less like bring forth new life and support a pregnancy. So the reproductive system is really delicate, very easily affected, very easily turned off. And stress is one of the primary factors that can negatively affect the reproductive system. So what do I do? What do I tell? Oh,
Yeah.
what were you going to say?
No. Go ahead. I'll piggyback off of you. Keep going.
I mean, again, this is a conversation I have with clients literally all day, every day, and it's like you can't take away the stress. Like it's just we live in a world where everyone has a lot on their plate, so it's not like stress is magically just going to go away, right? But in my opinion, it's learning tools and tactics to better manage the stress that we're exposed to. So, it's like meditation, in my opinion, is not just like a buzzword. It's legit. It works. It helps to teach your brain to better negotiate and handle stress when you're out in the world, right? So, learning techniques like meditation or just belly breath, like just learning how to breathe into our bellies versus in our chest, which keeps us in that fight or flight nervous system all day long. And then pleasure, truly finding things that you can get lost in, that you really embody mindfulness, where you're just lost in the moment, totally at bliss, like pleasure, doing more things that really make you happy, and not needing to just be busy and doing all the time, but just sort of just like being, just learning how to just be still. Um, and nature. I feel like nature is also something that, I was just like reading a book the other day, like the nature deficit child phenomenon or something, where it's like, our children truly are just not exposed to nature anymore. And that's being like outside, bare feet on the earth in like real living nature is really important for decreasing cortisol levels and like just retraining the nervous system to stay in a steady, calm, equilibrium state.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, fortunately, our kids so far love getting out and getting dirty.
Same, same. I'm like all day, or even in these like freezing cold temps, my son's like, bundle me up, put me out there. I'm like, okay.
I am curious. So, what I was going to ask is, so you had mentioned, right? So, stress from a female perspective, like, whoa, you got a lot going on. I'm not going to build another body with this going on. But for males who are obviously designed for a more massive reproduction standpoint, and we're not generating, we're not growing the body. How does stress affect them? Is it more lowering testosterone? Which
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it's less of a like you said, shutting down the reproductive system, but definitely, the research is clear that excessive production of cortisol depletes testosterone and nutrients. When we're stressed and we've got a lot of cortisol production, we're peeing out nutrients. Like we're depleting the body of really essential nutrients that feed the reproductive system, feed the production of like healthy sperm and good quality sperm that can swim fast and straightforward and fertilize the egg, penetrate the egg correctly. So male fertility is more affected in that regards.
Perfect. I think that's a great place to kind of wrap up and cap. So we're going to put in the information now to kind of keep home with people. So I'm just on your website here. What for those that are interested and want to get in touch with you, but sometimes it's like I know I got some stuff to work on. Maybe they want to do it on their own and test it, or maybe just the investment for what it is right not there. What's best step for someone? Is it just following along with the newsletter? I think I apologize because there's so much information notes on my sticky note, my notes. Is there like a kind of a boot camp thing to kind of get started with? What's best step for someone right now?
Totally. So I would say the top, first step. One, you can definitely on my website. I have join the SJS community. So definitely sign up for my newsletter. I send out a weekly Q&A email for people who are interested in fertility. I send out a weekly Fertility Friday email. So lots of information there. My blog, I have so much content. I love to write content around all of these things that we're talking about. So you can go to my blog and pretty much just get into the search function and search anything that you're looking for, and pretty much guarantee you're going to find an article I've written about it. And then third, I do have, for people who are interested in fertility particular, of course, check out my fertility code course. But also I have what I think is a really cool download, my daily fertility checklist, literally like a print it out, put it on your refrigerator kind of thing. That's like, do this, don't do this every single day sort of thing. Just gradual, easy, super easy to integrate steps. And then I also, for people that are not trying to conceive, but are more on the like, I need to get my hormones in check realm. I've got a great ebook that I wrote called Heal Hormonal Chaos that you can download for free on my site too.
Awesome. That is perfect. Obviously, that will fulfill anyone's time pretty extensively.
Yeah, lots on there.
That's awesome. Well, this has been awesome. I mean, I'm sad I didn't bring my actual. Uh, great points. This is such great stuff. I'm super excited for you and my wife to connect and chat.
Yay.
Y'all are going to be going just like, yes, that's you. I mean, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
I'm going to put all this as much as I can, obviously the notes that I took, but then all those links so anyone listening
Great.
can find all that stuff and start diving deep into fixing their hormones and fertility. So thanks again.
Thank you.